All right. Everybody, I'm watching the feed on our Facebook page, and I'm seeing everybody kind of jumping on. But I need you to tell me, give me a thumbs up or something if the sound's okay, if you guys can see me okay. Just let me know. Let me turn mine down. There we go. So we have a handful of people on now. I just want to. I'm doing a lot of things at once, so testing a few things. Plus, we're going to give some announcements. This is, when we move back in, we're going to want to live stream everything. So I'm testing some of that equipment as well. So I do see a thumbs up there. We're good. Sounds good. Okay, good. Um, all right, cool. So what I'm going to try to do also is, as I go through some of these, just some of these announcements and some of the things we're going to talk about, if you have a question, just drop it in the comments right there. And then whenever we get to the end, I'll, I'll, I'll try to address some of those if I hadn't already addressed them when we go through this list. So I'm going to try to keep up with that and kind of our announcement. So anyway, so I know for most of you guys, including me, we've been super anxious to get back together. As we've been thinking about how this looks, that word reentry, you just see me using that terminology, and I was thinking, I don't know, I've got on this weird kick since all of this has happened, where I'm on YouTube and I go into the black hole of YouTube, and I've been watching like airplanes landing and things like that, and before you know it, I'm watching um, watching space shuttles land and everything else. And what's really interesting is the reentry that a space shuttle has to go through whenever it gets ready to come back to Earth after it's done a kind of a stint in space. There's a whole lot of things and a whole lot of complications, and I mean everything's just got to be just right, and if not, you got to call it off. And so I was just thinking about that. That's kind of what we have to do as we move back into a physical gathering, is to think about every little detail. We got to cover everything. And so that's kind of what we're calling this. This is kind of our re-entry into physical worship gatherings. And as you heard, for most of you probably heard the announcement from the governor, something that we were anticipating for about a week now, is that we will be allowed to gather physically this coming Sunday, which I'm super excited about. I know that everybody is. And so, like one of the most important things I think that every church is having to think about and process is, how do we honor these social distancing guidelines that the CDC is given to us and recommending, these recommendations by our state officials, our government officials, and federal government officials. Um, and so for any church to gather on Sunday inside their buildings, I know some churches have started gathering outside of their buildings over the last couple of weeks, and some will be moving into this new area. Each church is going to have to start in this place of kind of gradually re-entering into their worship spaces while trying to mind all of these guidelines that have been given to us. And there's a lot of restrictions and circumstances that allow us to do this. Maybe just to give you a context for many of you who are probably tuning in, our church is around 70 to 80 members. On any given Sunday, we're 100 to 120. Believe it or not, when we were leading up to, like, I guess about this 4 to 6 weeks prior to us having to stop our physical gatherings, we were consistently seeing about 120 to 130 people come to our campus. And so that was pretty exciting. And so we were kind of bummed that we were finally, just gaining some traction and meeting new people and just having fun with that. But that's kind of our context as our local church on a normal given Sunday. That's what it looks like. And so, given the guidelines that the governor has laid out for today for Louisiana phase one reopening the state, this means that we are able to gather. We are able to meet on a Sunday morning. We're able to apply all of these appropriate social distancing practices that they've got in place for us, and that they're requesting of us. And so our intent as the leadership of Sulphur Community Churches, we want to honor and cooperate as practically as possible. And that's kind of been it's kind of been what we've been wanting to do and have been trying to do ever since this started. We want to be a blessing to our community. We want to be a blessing to those who are in leadership in the political realm and in our local, state, and federal levels. And so we did what we could do to honor and cooperate, and we'll continue to do that. And so with the intent of honoring these restrictions in phase one, which we'll assume that's being asked of us as we gather again. These are the guidelines that we've put together as a leadership team at Sulphur Community Church. Our elders sat down about 2 weeks ago, worked through this list, asked questions of our guidelines that we have down, and then we sat down with our leadership team and went through these guidelines as well. And so now, just as the general knowledge for our church family and those friends who would come and gather with us and worship with us on Sundays, I just kind of want to go through what it's going to look like that first Sunday and maybe the next few Sundays until these restrictions continue to lighten up. First, there's no discipleship classes. There's no new members gatherings. We were right in the middle of a session of new members gatherings. This is the classes that all of the friends, those who want to become members of our church. This is kind of a gathering that they go through a 4-week session of classes, understanding who we are and what we believe as a church, as a group of believers. So we were kind of in the middle of that, and I know for some of you, you've been pursuing membership, and it seems like it's kind of gotten interrupted. That's going to have to stay on pause just a little bit longer. We want to minimize the amount of gatherings, the amount of classes and things that we do. So there are going to be no discipleship classes or new members gatherings or anything like that, any additional gatherings in the beginning. And we'll just kind of, we'll play it week by week. A couple of these are going to be not so good news for a lot of you. I know a lot of you are excited about wanting to be back with our church family. And so some of these are hopefully they're not a discouragement. We don't want them to be, but we're continuing to try to be as safe as we possibly can. So with that, there's going to be no nursery. There's going to be no children's church during the worship gatherings until we feel like it's safe to do that. It's nearly impossible, especially our church that has, I think we add about 38 babies a week to our church gatherings. And so anyway, we're just, with our kids ministry, it's one of our most, we love that ministry. That ministry is probably one of the most effective ministries in our church. Our church is a young church with families who are growing. There have been babies that have been born since we've stopped meeting that we'll have to introduce ourselves to when we finally get to meet them. But in the interim, over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna hold off on nursery kids church during our worship gatherings. The other thing is we're going to have our the auditorium area where we meet is going to be spaced out. We're going to have chairs spaced out to provide the social distancing standards, and we want to encourage everyone to spread out in the auditorium. We're going to have people ready to help seat you when you come in on Sundays, and basically what we're asking is that members of your household can sit together. Otherwise, we want to maintain proper social distancing. So the seating is going to be kind of spread out, and so that kind of limits the amount of people we can actually move into the room as well. We kind of did a count. We feel like we can have as many people as may show up and still be able to adhere to the social distancing practices. We're going to dedicate an entire section of those chairs, those seats, for those who are over 60 or those who are immunocompromised, but those who still also want to attend. We want to kind of create a space where that's just kind of if you want to exercise caution as you come on Sundays, we'll have that space for you, and we'll have people kind of there to kind of help you, let them know. They'll ask questions to make sure that you're seated in the right place if that's what you wish. We're shooting to do communion this Sunday that we meet, the first one we meet. We're hoping to have everything ready for that, and just so you know, communion we'll have to exercise special caution with communion, and so we're going to limit the amount of hands and people that are actually preparing for the Lord's Supper, and then we're going to do distribution a little bit differently than what we're used to. We're used to just being able to go up to the table as a family and share that moment as a family. And as you can obviously realize, we'll have to do something different for that. And so that's kind of what we're working on too. That's on the that's on our hearts to be able to do that this Sunday, and we're still working some of the details out for that. All entrances and exits are going to be made through the exits are going to be made through the front door, through the main entrance only. No other exits, unless it's an emergency, will be available. That helps us limit the amount of touching and germs being spread everywhere. And so there's going to be no entry, no exit through the other doors in our building unless, of course, there's an emergency. We're going to ask everyone, if you come, to help us to honor these social distancing guidelines while you're in the auditorium, while you're interacting with other people, even in the parking lot. If Okay, so I'm switching. My camera just now bit the dust on me, so I'm switching to my computer screen. So somebody give me a thumbs up. Okay, I'm back on. Just let me know so I can continue on with this. Okay, good. All right, so moving on. So I was talking about the if you are in the auditorium, if you are in the foyer, if you're in the parking lot, help us to mind the social distancing guidelines. Um, I'm hearing no sound. Somebody tell me if you got. I'm good. Okay, good, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so anyway, social distancing. We're gonna have people around the campus reminding all of you to mind the social distancing guidelines, but just help us out with that. We would rather not have to come and tap someone on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you're standing too close." So help us with that if you would. A mask, face covering of some sort. We're not saying it is required, but we are strongly encouraging you to have one, especially those who fall into more that vulnerable category. If you wish to attend on Sundays, we strongly encourage you to wear some type of face covering when you're talking to people or near people. Um, the the other thing, obviously, there's a lot of questions about the kids' church and the nursery situation. If we're not having that, what does that look like? We are asking parents, and I want to encourage you, parents. Some of you who are part of our church family and who regularly attend, you know that, man, the room is electric on Sunday mornings with all of the kids. I'm talking about it's like it's crazy, it's wild, and it's fun, and we love it, and we always encourage parents not to stress out, not to try to make a toddler sit down and be still and be quiet 100% of the time, because we know that that's just not how they're built. They have to expend some energy. They have to say some things, and so we're cool with that. We love that. And so, with that being said, we do want you to be there, even though there's not kids' church, even though there's not going to be a nursery. We want you to be there, and we'll even set aside some space for you to sit in a particular spot in the room if that makes you feel better. But to keep your little ones with you. If you walk into our gatherings on a Sunday morning, I say it's our children's discipleship program. So any new kid that comes in, they get inducted into this discipleship program where you get taught to run around in a circle until it's time for you to go to kids' church. And so that's just what happens. And the kids are just kind of automatically engaging with one another and interacting with one another. That's going to be super difficult, but we're going to have to try the best we can to keep our kids with us, not to let them just run out in the room and go and spit on one another and lick the floors and things like that. We want to try to hold on to them and keep them with us where you're seated. Keep them in that space, before and after the services. We love the children. We love hanging out with the kids. We love that they're running around the room. We love that they're enjoying one another as the parents talk. And so we don't want to discourage you from coming. We don't want to discourage you from thinking that your child has to be like a totally opposite kid. If they want to shout out in the middle of our worship service, great. It adds a lot of flavor, and we love it. So please, if you feel safe and if you feel like you can do it, show up. And if you can't, no pressure. I completely understand it. When hopefully we can move past these restrictions pretty quick, and you'd feel comfortable to come back. With that being said, a few things that we're going to be doing. Two for sure is that we're going to continue to stream all of our on all of our social media platforms. So Facebook, YouTube, our website. This live stream that I'm doing right now is what we're going to be doing on Sunday mornings. So if it's a little bit too much, or if it's a little bit too risky, or you're not quite ready to go to that place with your kid or your kids, then we want to be able to stream our services so that you can still tune in and join us. The other thing that I want to say that's really important is that we know that little children in the service, we're going to be mindful of those kids who are in the room. And what we're going to do is we're going to take necessary steps to shorten the length of our services. Our services normally go an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. We're looking to cut that back by about 20 or 30 minutes. And so our order of worship on Sundays is going to look a little bit different. Our pastors, I don't know if you've paid attention over the last couple of weeks on our social media sites, where we're kind of trying to shorten our messages. That's been difficult for us, especially for me. Those of y'all know that. So we're doing everything we can to shorten the services, so that you'd feel okay to bring your little one with you. And again, look, man, if they want to get wild and crazy back there, it's okay with us. It's really okay with us, and we don't want you to stress over it. Restrooms are going to be the only thing accessible outside of the auditorium space. So no going back into the kitchen area or into the kids' building or other places. That we just want to kind of minimize, again, the places that we go and touch. Another thing that's going to be really difficult for us is that we're going to be asking everyone to immediately exit the building after our service is over. So as we conclude our services, we're going to need everyone to leave out, to leave the room. That's kind of difficult because sometimes it'll be 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'll be turning out the lights on people, and they're still just hanging out talking, and I love that. Someone told me one time that you can tell the health of a church by how long people stay after and visit with one another. So that's encouraging to see that. But at the same time, we're in uncharted waters, and so we're trying to figure this out. As we dismiss, we're going to ask everyone to immediately exit the building through the front doors, through the main entrance that they came. After everyone has exited the building, we're going to have a few of our team members hang back and just kind of do a complete disinfection of the room, wiping down everything, and getting prepared for the next gathering. So what you're going to see on Sundays is you're going to see people wiping things down throughout the service. We're going to be doing that before you get there. One thing that we're going to do that's also different, and it's kind of necessary for these times, is that we're going to actually be checking people in. We want to know who's coming in and who's leaving out, and so we're going to have people around to help you get checked in and get your family checked in. The main reason that we're doing this, I know it kind of sounds weird to kind of like sign an attendance sheet or something like that, but the main reason we're doing this is one of the questions that came from our team, our leadership team, when we were going through these guidelines is, what if we find out that someone has tested positive for coronavirus and has been in our gatherings? What do we do about that? Well, the one thing we can do about that is let everyone know if they've been in close contact with someone who's tested positive. So we'll need to know who's been in the room. So it's just kind of some security and some safety for us to be able to best care for you who come, our church family, and our friends and our visitors who come. So we're going to have some people around helping you get checked in. For most of you, it's going to be as quick as a click of a button. For some of you, if you're not in our church admin software, then it'll take a few minutes just to get you plugged in. So we realize that this is a bit much. It seems a little bit over the top for some of you, and for others, you may understand. But we would rather be over prepared and lighten some of these restrictions as we go, rather than just return to a gathering and not be prepared and it be a disaster. And so we want to make certain that people feel safe when they come through the door. We want to make sure we're doing everything we can to best care for one another. And our aim is to make sure that we're being responsible and we're being safe as we can. So I'm going to scroll through this and see if I can catch any questions. I don't know if I saw any, but it would be easier if you just throw them up there again if you ask if I haven't covered anything. Yeah, so Jessica, thank you for kind of covering some of this stuff. No nursery membership classes. Yeah, so if you have questions, you can throw them out. I'm kind of watching the feed right now to answer any questions, anything that I may have not covered on here. And of course, you can always just kind of drop us a message or give us a call, and we can talk through some of this stuff too. Cry room accessible. Yes, the cry room will be accessible, obviously because of these weird circumstances. If you have to kind of jet out of the room right quick, that will be available for you. So thanks for that question. That room is just in the foyer area. It's kind of tucked away in the corner, but we'll have some people there to kind of show you where it's at if you need access to that room. Of course, if you're in that room, then we want to ask anyone else who goes in there to make sure you guys keep your 6 foot space from one another. Other questions? Okay, guys. Well, I appreciate all of you kind of joining in and tracking along with us. Here's the deal. Our goal is to meet together. We were really trying as hard as we could before they actually shut everything down to be as safe as we could, but not to forsake the gathering. It's not necessarily forsaking the gathering. It's just kind of strange times that that we'll be that we're in, and so we're just trying to manage it the best we can. And so we appreciate the patience and we appreciate the understanding. Help us to kind of keep some of these guidelines, and we're going to do our best to keep you safe. We want you to be there. We want you to be in attendance. There's just that's just a holy moment during the week when God's people gets together for worship, kind of in one heartbeat. So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on Sunday.